Hi, I'm Gavin,
And I'm Dave.
and you're on the fringe.
Come along with us for a ride on a podcast where we talk about an area or a thing going on in the world that needs more attention, just like you do. Let's go.
On the fringe. Here we go. Ho, 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 ho. Welcome to On the Fringe. I'm Gavin. This is my good friend Dave. What are we talking about today, Dave?
So we're going to be talking about old Canada today,
Oh, Canada. I apologize to all
eh?
Canadians. I did not mean to mangle it in that way. That was unintentional. And I can assure you that me singing the American national anthem would have gone as badly. So, yes, we are talking about Canada today. Oh, oh, what are we talking about? Because, Canada is kind of a big place, Dave.
It is, but there are a lot of countries that are kind of beating up on Canada right now. I mean, Canada is the second biggest country in the world, and I think it's the first
Yeah,
biggest punching bag from
I
what it
know.
looks
I have
like.
a passport for one of them. Um,
Mm.
So, yeah, if you are in the US, you've definitely heard about Canada in the news. Everyone's talking about it. And it's mostly to do with the rapidly, sort of amazingly rapid deterioration of the relationship between Canada and the US, and probably how it's had a knock-on effect with Canadian politics. They now have a new premier. They don't have a president. They have a prime minister or a premier. And that fella is who, Dave?
So Mark Carney.
Mark Carney, my old nemesis. Uh,
Ooh,
I I know Mark Carney because Mark Carney used to be the governor of the Bank of England way back when.
I
Uh,
remember this. I
yeah,
remember this.
he's an interesting. We're not going to spend a lot of time on Mark Carney, but he's an interesting guy. He has never run for an election before. The first election he's ever been involved in was the leadership contest of the Liberal Party in Canada, which just happened, which he won by a landslide. He has been a central banker for pretty much his entire career. He's been central banker in Canada. I believe early on he worked for Goldman Sachs. He was governor of the Bank of England, so he's been a central banker kind of internationally. And he developed a pretty, I would say, robust reputation as kind of a hard charging sort of guy. I don't think there was a lot of, I don't think anyone thought he was going to go into politics, but he has. And so far, he seems to be making something of an impression. He is definitely not wasting time. I'll say that.
No, he's not.
He's not. He's making a lot of statements. He's putting out a lot of policy. He's meeting a lot of people. Um, and he's living up to his reputation, I would say. Though it remains to be seen how the Liberal Party will do in the upcoming elections in October. Um, there has been a change in leadership, and it probably couldn't have come at a better time because in addition to the United States financial issues, I would say, and various other things going on between the US and Canada, there are other countries involved too. I would say for the last 40, 50 years, Canada has developed a reputation as kind of a bastion of liberalism, a place where people can go to get away from governments that might not be treating them very well. Uh, and consequently, a lot of governments that don't always treat people particularly well have taken exception to this. And
Hmm.
they're not always very respectful of Canadian sovereignty. So, yes, the U.S. relation is not great. There are other countries involved as well. What's the big headline news, Dave?
Well, just going to take one of them. And in the last week, the Chinese government executed 4 dual citizen Chinese and Canadians in
Mm-hmm.
China.
Mm-hmm.
And they were basically charged as using drug smuggling. And the Canadian government up is very, very against the death penalty. They abhor the death penalty, but the Chinese government basically would not give the Canadians any sort of access to the Chinese Canadian citizens because they're dual citizens. So that's kind of a note there. If you are a dual citizen, you go to a foreign country and you have dual citizenship. If you break the laws of the country that you are a citizen of, you may not get any sort of representation or access to consular, I guess, benefits from your other country of citizenship.
It could be a,
And
yeah.
it's been very, very trying for the Canadian government in the last week for them to basically talk with the Chinese. They've been very strongly disrespected by the Chinese. I would even say going back to the whole Meng Wanzhou escapade a couple
Yeah.
of years ago when she was arrested in Vancouver and the Chinese arrested 2 Canadians in China. So
And
this has
help
gone on
for a
tit
number
for
of years.
tat for a
Yeah.
number of years.
I mean, and I would say, and you could say this about any country, but definitely with China, definitely with the PRC. Uh, they don't do things for no reason. Uh, People don't wake up one day and go, "Well, we're gonna kill these guys." This is leverage. They want something. They're not getting it from the Canadians. This is their way of putting pressure on the Canadian government in a public way and demonstrating to the Canadian government that they can make them give them what they want. Um,
It's almost a form of public humiliation.
it is. I think that's the intention. That's what they're doing. And they purposefully highlighted the fact that Canada doesn't have the death penalty before they put these people to death. They purposely highlighted the fact that Canada has liberal drug laws. They're doing this for attention. They're doing this. I think they're very aware that their election's coming up, and China's already been implicated in pretty massive attempts to influence Canadian politics, and they definitely do. And there is manipulation going on. That's just kind of a matter of record at this point.
And that's not
Um,
the only kind of manipulation. We'll leave it at that. This would be a whole rabbit hole.
It's a whole rabbit hole. Um, they are already intensely involved in the preparations for domestic elections in Canada. I think this is part of that. I think this is part of, yes, you might have a Canadian passport. You might think you're safe. Guess what? You're not. We still tell you what to do.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of it. There's a lot of signaling going on. Now, Chinese are not the only country doing this. Uh, some South Asian countries that I
Mm-hmm.
may not mention by name, some South Asian countries have similar issues in Canada, have similar beef with Canada. Some Middle Eastern countries, same issue. So Canada, again, because it kind of has been generous if you are a political asylum seeker, it is now dealing with the fact that these countries that are leaning into transnational oppression feel emboldened, and they feel emboldened by this moment in North American political relations to kind of pile on to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And
so go
they
ahead.
see that. Oh, I was going to say they see that if they want to get back at the Canadians for whatever the Canadians have done to them, this is their chance.
Yeah.
Because
Unfortunately.
if the U.S. and I mean U.S. and Canada generally have had good relations basically since the late 1800s.
Yeah.
And if the U.S. and Canada now are starting to get at loggerheads over, even if the whole 51st state idea is a joke, then Canadians are taking it very, very seriously that they do not want to be part of the US. And if the Canadians are having to deal with America, then they're not going to have the resources to deal with other countries bothering them and having more strict trade policies or executing their citizens or going after their own citizens on Canadian soil.
And I think this is interesting just to sort of wrap this all up in a neat bow. I think this is why someone like Mark Carney is doing so well right now, because people essentially want someone. And, a central banker is, I don't want to use the word authoritarian, that's not quite fair, but a central banker is exactly what it sounds like. You're the person making decisions. And I think right now people in Canada definitely feel that they would be reassured by decisive leadership, by someone going in there and saying, we're not going to put up with this. This is what we're doing, because they kind of need it. There's definitely, if you're a security worker, let's just say that, if you're working in national security in Canada right now, you're overworked. I'm just gonna say it. You're doing a lot at the moment. So I think Canadians are looking to this guy and are going, yeah, the fight back kind of needs to start now because it's not coming from one place. It's really coming from all sides.
Yep.
On
Elbows
that
up.
on that note, we're on the fringe. We're here. We're recording all the time. Please like, please comment, please subscribe, please share with your friends. Um, what we always love when you share it with your friends, when you share it with your enemies, when you share it with people on the street, with their pets, anything. So, thank you very much for listening. We'll talk to you soon.